Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat?
Let's talk some NFL. Let's talk some NFL Combine. Let's talk some New Orleans Saints. And for that, we'll go to our guy, Mike Triplett, neworleans.football on Twitter, at Mike Triplett. Mike, appreciate the time. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So here we go. It's draft and salary cap season, so I want to get into all of it with you. Let's start on the draft side. The Combine getting underway in Indianapolis. The Saints, of course, they'll send a large contingent like they always do. I think everyone, when they think of the Combine, you think of the workouts. That's not going to take place till later, but you got plenty of build up to there. What does the week kind of look like for Saints brass as they set up shop in Indianapolis?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little of everything. It's sort of like an NFL convention. So they are looking at the prospects. They're looking at them closer than ever. The meetings are important. The medical is important. The workouts are important. All a part of the process, just like the Senior Bowl was, just like Pro Days will be, just like the scouting grades they already had on them before will be. But since the whole NFL descends on Indy for this anyway, and since we're 2 weeks away from the start of free agency, this is also where a lot of NFL business gets done. They're going to be meeting with agents if they're talking about reworking deals, if they're talking trade. They come together a lot in Indianapolis when those things happen. They can't really talk to free agents yet widespread unless they're players that have been cut by another team, which is why this was a big time for Derek Carr and his representatives to be meeting with some teams this time last year. So it really always does symbolize, here we go, the offseason is underway.
Mike, when you look at the needs that the Saints have as they head into free agency and the draft, and I mean, they can address obviously multiple needs in multiple areas, whether it be free agency or the draft. Going through Senior Bowl now, looking at all mock drafts that have been out, there's really three positions that keep being sent to the Saints, and it's offensive tackle, defensive line, or wide receiver. Is there one of those that you feel particularly is a bigger or the biggest need for New Orleans?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think the defensive line is the number one need, but I think it's such a great need that they better address it in free agency. They can't just wait till the draft. They could do both, though. It's a big enough need. They need a pass rush. They need a better run defense, and they need to get younger. It's just a position that's been gutted, even though they've invested so much of it in recent years. So, all my eyes are going to be on that. I do like the offensive line for the draft, though, because I think that's a position where they need to get younger in particular. We don't know what's going to happen with Trevor Penning. We don't know how much longer Ryan Ramczyk's health is going to hold up. If they bring back James Hurst and Andrus Peat, they feel like temporary solution. So I like the idea of drafting an offensive lineman in round 1 or 2. There's a lot to choose from. A lot of those guys are going to be jockeying for position based on what they do at the Combine this week. And then I think the reason receiver keeps being mentioned, I just wrote about it today, they do need one more pass catcher, I think a physical pass catcher, red zone guy, third down guy, that kind of thing. I don't think it's a must as much as the defensive line and the offensive line are, but the talent is just so great. I mean, where they're picking at 14, where they're picking at 45, there's just so many receivers in this draft to choose from, a couple of them from LSU, obviously, that, it just might line up. I do like their young talent receiver, though. There's not a lot of positions on this team where you can say, oh, the Saints have a lot of good young talent at that position, but they do at receiver. So in that sense, it's not a must, but you can always use more.
You might have just answered my next question. I was going to ask if there was a position group you were most excited to see here while, kind of keeping an eye on things in Indy. Is it the receiver group?
Kind of. I mean, they're gonna be the ones that, nationally garner the most attention. Somebody's going to run an incredible number. I mean, Malik Neighbors and Adunza from Washington are kind of jockeying to be the number 2 guy picked behind Marvin Harrison. I guess Thomas will try to get himself into the top 10 if he performs well enough. But then you could list 10 guys that, if you look at different mock drafts, different big boards, some, that are in some people's first rounds, some people's second rounds. And I think those are the guys that have a chance to make a lot of money for them if they can move themselves into sort of the top 5 group that being looked at in the top 20 picks.
Mike Triplett is with us on Twitter at Mike Triplett, of course, neworleans.football. You'll give him a follow, get subscribed, go read the stuff. They all do great work over there at neworleans.football. Mike, I want to switch gears now a little bit to salary cap. Saints,
yeah.
I think the moves that they've made so far, I don't think anyone's really surprised by them, right? I mean, whether it was, Eric McCoy, restructure, Derek Carr, I think everybody expected those to be on there. What's interesting is the bevy of different moves they could make going into the future. First, with the salary cap being $30 million more than I think expected, how much, if any, does that help the New Orleans Saints here?
Well, first of all, it's rising $30 million from last year, and I would say it's about $12 million more than people expected that we're projecting. So that helps a little. Obviously, I mean, when you start the offseason $80 million, now you only started the offseason $70 million, so it helps a little. It doesn't help a lot, but it all helps. And look, a big part of the reason why the Saints manage the cap the way they do, and people always get so frustrated by it. Fans get frustrated by it. NFL analysts get frustrated by it. But if the cap goes up and up and up and just soars like it was doing before COVID, like it's back to doing now, you really can't get in any trouble managing the cap that way. So this is just a good sign, not only that it went up $30 million this year, but that it's just going to keep going up and up. And look, that means players are going to cost more. When when the salary cap was $120 million, Drew Brees became the first $20 million quarterback of all time. Now it's $250 million a team, and we have $50 million quarterbacks. So it doesn't necessarily make it easier, but it should just make people worry less about, oh no, the Saints are in this black hole that they're never going to get out of. They really, if they ever decided we have to get out of this, or if they're ever so bad that they're totally rebuilding, or God forbid they ever have a first-round rookie quarterback on the team that doesn't cost much money, they could really get out of this pretty quickly.
So, all right, let's get into a couple of the players. You mentioned Ryan Ramczyk earlier when we were talking about potentially drafting a tackle. Mike, what do they do there? Because, I mean, they could clear plenty of money in the cap with a restructure of him, but with the health issues, do you really want to spread it out over the voidable years?
Well, I mean, look, part of his salary is already guaranteed anyway, and if they restructure him, they would guarantee even more. Maybe they want to talk to him about taking a pay cut or agreeing to some health-related incentives. Maybe he would say, no, hey, I don't want to do that. You either pay me or you let me go. I think everyone seems confident that he is going to find a good medical path that is going to allow him to be competitive. He had 2 years ago when he only missed one game. He thought he had heading into this year before the knee really started acting up on him. So, I think they'll try it for another year. I mean, if healthy, he's totally worth the $17 million he's due this year. He's one of the best right tackles in the league. But that's a big one for this team. That is a position where they had a lot of money invested in a star player that they drafted well. They would like for that not to be one of their gaping holes, no doubt about it.
Alvin Kamara is always interesting this time of year too. I think restructure is definitely there. He's 29 years old now, coming off, I believe, his lowest season of yards from scrimmage, but still productive for Kamara. But there's always that hint of a trade rumor with him either. Do you think it's more likely they restructure Kamara, or would they actually consider trading him now? Yeah,
I mean, it's not out of the question when you are a running back going into your 8th year and you're due to make about $12 million. That's a position where a team looks to save money. I mean, we're seeing that storyline all around the league. Saquon Barkley stayed with the Giants, but Ezekiel Elliott moved on. Dalvin Cook moved on. A lot of guys that are in the same kind of group. So it's not completely out of the question, but I mean, I think they're excited about what he can do in this new offense. I think they still have seen spring in his step. I think, they still like the leadership and the attitude he brings to his team, all that stuff. So I don't expect it. I just would never rule it out. I think one more year is probably very likely that he remains on the team. He could absolutely be one of the next restructures we hear about. But next year, the contract is he's basically going into the last year of his contract. Next year, it'll be a much bigger talking point if it's not one this year.
Okay, and then one guy I find interesting, just because now unrestricted free agent, Zach Bond. What do you think they do with Bond?
I don't think he'll break the bank. He's a guy I think
Okay.
they should be looking to bring back. There's some Caden Ellis similarities here, and they liked Caden Ellis a lot, but another team, wanted to spend more. And look, that cap went up for every team in the league. So there might be some teams that have a lot of money to spend that take guys like him and just pay more than the Saints are willing to pay. But in general, it took him so long to get on the field. I don't know how other teams can make a sure thing investment on him. He's a guy I think they'd like to bring back, but if they don't bring him back, they do need. And I think either way, I think they need, a younger edge rushing guy, even if it's just in substitution packages that, like we started this conversation with, they need to find ways to improve this pass rush.
Last one for you, Mike. Your time appreciated. I guess you wouldn't, if you were expecting it, it wouldn't be a surprise. But is there anything that you potentially could foresee that maybe just goes beyond a simple restructure this year for somebody? I mean, there's plenty of aging guys on this team.
No, and look, restructuring is just giving them the same money they were due and calling it something different so you can put it in the accounting books differently. But there's also some guys who, maybe they want to cut. Maybe they don't think they're worth the money anymore. Maybe they'll demand a pay cut. And you asked about Alvin Kamara. I think Alvin Kamara will come back at his salary. You asked about Ryan Ramczyk. Those are two guys that aren't sure things for different reasons. Another one we talked about on the show recently is Taysom Hill. He's due $10 million. I think they'll want to pay him that $10 million, and hopefully Clint Kubiak is excited to work with him with all the options, the things he can do with him. But that's still a lot of money for a guy who has become a bit player on this team. One that kind of interests me is Marcus May. If I knew he was going to be healthy, he's absolutely worth $7.5 million. But, can they count on his health after he's missed time each of the last 3 years now? So, there are some of those decisions that could be more than just restructures, no question.
He is Mike Triplett, neworleans.football on Twitter, at Mike Triplett. And we appreciate all the time he gives us every time we call on him here on AFR. Mike, it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.